the Magnus, bringing you another Total War Warhammer online ladder battle. And do I have a heck of one for you guys today. My opponent chose the vampire counts, and I decided to bring Bretonnia. So I brought 7 of the spearmen, 4 peasant bowmen, 2 grail knights, 1 of their trebuchets, 2 paladins, damsel, and the king. And let's take a look and see what my opponent brought. He brought Manfred Von Carstein on his zombie dragon and 2 units of Vargeists, 1 extremely ranked up. And then along his line here he has, I believe, 2 skeletal spearmen, and he has 5 graveguard, or I'm sorry, 6 graveguard, and he has 2 of the Karn wraiths. Now right away when I came into this battle and saw what he had, I really didn't like my chances much. The 2 ethereal units, the only thing I really have that could deal with them would be the king himself, and of course the grail knights, which I deployed on my right side here. And just the overall strength of his infantry is very high, plus he has air units. The only thing I have an advantage with is cav. But let's go ahead and see how this plays out. So he begins advancing as I have artillery here. I opt not to. Now you're going to notice my front line is staggered. This is done on purpose because I'd played this player before and I remembered him using Winds of Death on me. Not very successfully, but darn close, so I wasn't going to give him a shot at that. So I move up my flying units and I'm going to start to pursue his. And at first, to be honest, I thought perhaps these were bats, and once I got closer I was like, oh, those aren't bats. But I decided to fight it out, see how we can do here. And initially the fight's going fine, but you're going to see he throws down Curse of Years, which I'm not used to seeing a lot from the vampires. And very quickly I decide it's time to get out of this battle, but my king is having a lot of trouble extricating himself. But I do get him out, and I'm waiting for this curse to wear off and trying to avoid him catching me. In the meantime, his offensive infantry continue to move forward, and I have my Grail Knights ready for a flank charge. Now here again the king gets caught by his Vargeists in the air, and he's going to start to take some serious damage here, and he gets spirit leeched. So I bring back the paladins to try to help him get out of here, and I'm so focused on this that my infantry, my missiles, and more specifically my damsel are going pretty much unused at this point. Not a good situation to be in. My king is darn nearly dead and fleeing, so I have to leave the paladins in, otherwise it would be very smart for him to take a flying unit and simply finish off the king. So I'm trying to pound through as much damage as I can here, and see what we can do. I did use Curse of the Midnight Wind finally, realizing I have a damsel and a whole nother battle going on. Now his infantry clash with mine. He does start to send 1 spearman unit up here, so I let the Grail Knights charge them to quickly knock them out and free the Grail Knights up. Now he's going to send Manfred chasing after the king and leaves his Vargeist to fight my paladins, and what's going to be a pretty losing battle for him. Speaking of losing battles though, my infantry across the line are just simply outclassed by the Graveguard, and they are not holding up well. You can see these spearmen already broke. He's pouring into my line, so I know I have to use these Grail Knights to maximum effect as soon as possible, otherwise I'm going to be looking at a complete chain route, which is pretty much what has already happened. So in go the Grail Knights. They get a nice charge into all these undead units, and I'm hoping it will give time for my infantry to recover. My king recovered, and my paladins have been attacking enough to keep these guys off him for now. Now I think I try to pull the king. Yeah, I try to pull the king back towards my army. In the meantime, I'm just sending the Grail Knights through everything because almost none of my army have decided to stick around and fight, with the exception of the damsel. So I'm going to be using her every chance I get to debuff and attack my enemies. Over here, once again he catches my king. He's pretty much a foregone conclusion, and boom, down goes my king. Not good. I'm chasing Manfred with the paladins though, and right now the only thing I have in play is some very shaky bowmen there and my cav, and I'm just doing the best I can to to bring down as many of his guys as possible and give chase to Manfred, because I lost my leader. That's a huge knock on my leadership, and I'd like to return the favor to him. So I get very close on Manfred here. He's using Undeath Resurgent and trying to get away any way he can. He dives down into my cav, perhaps trying to seek shelter in there. He will find none, and we are desperate to return the favor and knock out the Vampire Lord. So I've got everything I have left is here. This is all that's still fighting. Everything else is running, being chased, and boom, down goes the enemy Lord. Now, according to the bar, it's pretty even up, numbers-wise it is, but of course all of his men are fighting. They don't do the fleeing business. So we're in here, scrapping it out, doing the best we can. As you can see from the timer, this thing goes on forever, and I'd fast forward, but there's so many interesting things that happen. Like, I get these guys rallied, they start to fire and turn the tide, but this Vargeist that has just 2 Vargeist left in the unit is more than enough to scare the crap out of both of those units. So that is not my favorite. Now my Grail Knights decide to retreat, and the only people I still have control over are my Paladin and my Damsel, and I have these Spearmen that recovered, and I'm trying to get them into the thick of the battle. He's very wisely using his other units to chase off my guys so they can't return to the fight. So it's just down to 2 Paladins and a couple of Spears trying to fight it out with Graveguard, and quite a bit of them. Looks like 2 Graveguard, 3 Graveguard, and a Skeletal Spearman. So numbers definitely not in my favor. There's a little bit of leftovers of my Grail Knights still fighting, but here we have some Grail Knights that are going to recover, and they're going to come in and try to turn the tide and see if we can't get things in my favor. So here comes the charge right into the back of these Graveguard, and boom, they're going to do good damage there. But he's still pushing forward this way. Here comes wave 2 of more Grail Knights that reformed, and a lightning bolt coming down from the Damsel, doing everything we can to turn the tide here. It's very close, but he's been very successful, as you can see, in chasing off my other units, and he has 1, 2, 3, 4 units headed in, and I just have some shaky spearmen. So I decided cycle charging is going to be the only way. The Grail Knights are too weak to stay in the thick of the fight, so I'm going to try to get as many charges in as I can. And boom, ripping into those undead yet again. In comes his Vargeists. They're going to cause a lot of fear, which is the last thing I need at this point, especially for those Spearmen who had just reformed. And he's also got some Karn Wraiths that are coming back. So at this point, I really don't like my chances, but, you know, here we've got to win. We've knocked out everybody except for this Graveguard, and he is crumbling. So I've got my guys working on him, trying to get something done here, and I realize I need to intercept these Karn Wraiths with the Grail Knights, because they're the only ones that are going to be able to do a lot of damage to them, because they do magical and fire damage. In the meantime, my Damsel has given up, my Spearmen have given up, leaving me with 2 Paladins and 2 very weak Grail Knight units. But his Karn Wraiths are crumbling, and also so are these Graveguard, but still a good bit of them. And this is coming my way, 78 more Graveguard and 85 more Graveguard. So it's looking more desperate all the time. Grail Knight flees off. This Grail Knight wants to run, so it just leaves 2 Paladins who want to fight, and they are outnumbered considerably. 11 to 192 is what it says right now, but that's counting these folks, and they're not in the fight. So all I have is the Paladins, and he's grinding me down pretty quick, and he's about to get a downhill charge. So I'm going to try to pull these guys out. Go, go, go. Get out of there. Get out of there. You're going to die. I need charge bonus. I need, you know, I still have men on the ground technically, so I don't have to worry about losing leadership being in the air. I just need to kind of regroup and be able to pick my targets. So I'm trying desperately, but these Karn Wraiths do a great job of stopping my Paladins from being able to get out. So I have this one dive into the Graveguard, try to do some damage to them. It does, but he's taking damage at a pretty high rate. In comes the other one, and he crashes in. The Karn Wraiths, by the way, sorry it happened off screen, but they melted away. So now I'm just thinking, okay, I got to keep cycle charging and get things crumbling. That's the only way I'm going to win, so I start pulling them out again. And without the Karn Wraiths, it's a good deal easier, as you can see. We're able to extricate ourselves from the fight, get back into the air. We still have a unit on the ground, so no penalty. Dive down, horrible charge that time, but at least they do a little ground charge in. But I'm working on the weaker of the two units, because this one obviously has much less health. But I'm just really questioning whether this is even possible. But they don't have a leader, and vampires over time, their units have a hard time keeping cohesion without a leader. And my paladins have no sign of quitting them, so they're fighting. If you notice, their morale, their leadership is definitely shaky, but it's not falling apart. His army is. And sorry for how long that was, but wow, what a battle. Literally came down to next to nothing. I've just got 2 paladins and I'm trying to sneak a victory out of it. It was a lot of fun to play. Good game to my opponent, and thank you for an excellent challenge. So let's look at the tail of the tape. The first thing that jumps out at me is my infantry were absolutely worthless, and that's because I failed to properly support them with the damsel, and he brought such a high quality infantry corps that these guys could not possibly deal with. Because of that, the peasant bowmen had no chance to have an effect. The king got chumped pretty hard. That was a great play by my opponent, but the paladins did fantastic, well beyond their numbers, because they won me the fight. Trebuchet did nothing, again, the same reason, because the infantry couldn't protect them. But my Grail Knights came up huge. They just did a fantastic job. And Donald Trump, huge. Just huge. And yes, I know my impersonation's terrible. Looking at my opponent, his Graveguard kicked my teeth in. The Karn Wraiths did well. The Vargeists, were integral in taking out the king, so they did serve a purpose. This Skeletal Spearman did well. This one, I'm guessing, is the one that got ran over by the Grail Knights, so not so much. And Manfred, with his spells and abilities, obviously had a role to play. But that battle could have gone either way. He did a great job of scaring a lot of my men off the field, and we did a great job of cutting down his, and it just came down to that very end. Anyways, if you liked the video, you learned something, hit that like button, hit subscribe, give it that thumbs up. Until the next time, this is the Magnus, and I'll see you on the ladder soon.